Here with you on the line with us is our friend Professor Richard Wolff, the economist, co-founder of democracyatwork.info, author of numerous books. His most recent, Understanding Socialism, rdwolff with 2fs.com, also his website. You can tweet him at Prof. Wolff, as in Professor Wolff. Professor Wolff, welcome back to the program. I'm curious. I shared with you, I believe this morning, an article from medium.com about this massive overhang of corporate debt. And there was an article in the Financial Times this morning about how companies, the Fed is just like, they're not only just buying, they used to buy treasuries. We've talked about this a couple times now. They used to buy treasuries, then they were buying investment grade corporate debt. Now they're buying junk bonds. And so basically every company in America, or at least every publicly traded company, is issuing debt, is issuing bonds that the Fed is buying, and it's keeping them afloat. It's like a backdoor bailout. How long can this last, and is this, trillion plus dollars of corporate debt? What kind of threat does that represent, not just to the corporations, but to America?
Well, I think it's a scheme. It's a game of desperate people in a panic mode. It has to be understood as that. No one should be fooled by government officials in ties and jackets acting as though everything is under control. Nothing is under control. That's why they're doing these things. But let's deal with the particular question of corporate debt. We've had now the third crash of capitalism in the 21st century. The dot-com crash in 2000, the subprime mortgage crash in 2008, and now the coronavirus crash. In each case, a weak economy was vulnerable to something which in other circumstances had never caused a crash before. So suddenly we have to face what is wrong with the economy. But that's a taboo topic in the United States and in most capitalist countries. You can criticize anything but not the economic system. So what do?
Right.
You don't question it. You don't change it. What you do is you print money. That's what they did in 2000. That's what they did after 2008. And that's what they're doing now. The only difference is the quantities of money being produced are greater than ever. And in order to get that huge amount of new money out of the box of the Federal Reserve and of the Treasury, you lower interest rates, which we know that they've done for 20 years now. Here's the problem. Every company, large, small, and medium, now has one way to solve whatever problems it has. Free money or virtually free money, interest rates close to zero. So every corporation, no matter what it wants to do, buy back its stock, give its corporate executives wild amounts of pay, go abroad, try a new technology, go into another line of business. Whatever its plans, its problems, they're solved by borrowing. So here we are, 2020, with our corporate sector so overloaded with debt that for many companies, they're called zombie companies, the debt they owe, the interest and amortization of their debt, is more now per year than the total net revenue they're bringing in from their business. They are technically bankrupt, even if they haven't gone through the process. This puts every company in an unbelievably vulnerable position, always on the edge of failure. So they're not going to hire the way they would if they weren't overloaded like that. They're not going to take any risks. You're in an economy that is slowly closing down, and the only reason people aren't focused on it is that the virus has made us close down even more dramatically, so we're losing sight of what this crisis is as it builds up.
So just to put this in terms that I think every American can understand, when you get your credit card bill every month, you have the choice between just paying the interest on the bill. Say you've got a $1,000 credit card balance,
Right.
and you could just pay the $20 interest, or you can pay all $1,000 of it and not pay any interest, or you can pay $500 and pay interest, or whatever it may be, right? But those are your choices. But you got $1,000 on your credit card, but then you decide, hey, I'm going to live large. So you put $10,000 on your credit card, and now your interest payments are $200 a month. You can do that because you make $200, or you make $500 a month, let's say. But then you say, hey, let's go to $50,000 on the credit card. Now your interest payments are more than your paycheck. And all of a sudden, you can't even make your interest payments. And that's the point at which the bank goes, huh? A, have I characterized that correctly? And B, at what point do the banks that are, or the bondholders who are loaning these big corporations money say, wait a minute, this company, their cash flow is less than the amount of money that they owe us?
Absolutely. At that point, the bank realizes it can't go on funding this company. It is simply too risky. And then the company collapses. Could that happen? Yes, it is happening as we speak. But there are other dimensions that folks don't seem to understand. If the government is handing out free money to every corporation that's in over its head, which in this country is at least half of all the corporations, the rest of the world is going to say, you are cheating. Your government is subsidizing your corporations. And that's unfair competition with this British company, this Japanese company, this Chinese company. And those companies are not going to sit by recognizing that, for example, an American company that gets free money can drop its price a little bit and so outcompete a competitor from China or Britain or Brazil. They're not going to allow their government to sit by and do nothing. And so you're going to grow into a global crisis because this kind of funny money economic system that we are now in is unacceptable to the rest of the world. That's not the way capitalism is supposed to work, that every problem you have is solved by the government handing out free money. It also means, just to get the idea across, that the value of the dollar is now in great question as the world turns away from doing business with the United States, especially with a government which will not listen to the demands of not doing this kind of stuff. The rest of the world is not going to deal with the dollar anymore. It's too risky. They don't want to accumulate dollars. They don't know what a government that behaves this way may do to the value of the dollar with its behavior. And so you're going to see an atrophy of our opportunities abroad as the Chinese and the Europeans and the others turn more to one another and away from the nationalist thrust of what is going on here, both to handle the crisis and in all the other ways that the American government is withdrawing from a real engagement with the rest of the world.
It almost seems as if the Trump, and now, you've got Jerome Powell playing this game as well, which is, back when I thought he was an economist, was shocking. Now that I learned that he's an investment banker, well, I guess it makes sense. But it almost seems as if they're trying to kneecap our economy. Like this is some intentional plan to do as much damage to the United States as possible during the 4 years that Donald Trump is in the White House. Is that too paranoid or weird? Or, does the evidence support a conclusion like that?
I don't think so. I may be wrong and you may be right, Tom, but I think more the way it makes sense to me is, and I know this is scary, but I don't know how else to make sense of it. This is the end of a system. This is the kind of we're in trouble if we don't do something bizarre, we're in trouble if we do something bizarre, and it's a panic, and everything is a matter of days and weeks. This is what happens when systems run out of gas, when it's over. Capitalism has had a run for 300 or 400 years. It has nothing to be ashamed of in terms of its achievements. It has plenty to be ashamed of in the human cost of doing it, but that's true for all other systems too that we know of. And so I think these are signs of a much larger terminal kind of problem. Scary as that is, I think that's what we're seeing.